Good evening. In the process of making the second video about the Prince Albrecht Palais and the untold story, I had to evaluate all of these scanned images. And what you're looking at is the tax audits of my great-granduncle from the years 1931, 35, 38, 1941, and the last one of 1943, covering a whopping 262 pages of accounting, and nothing but accounting, as you can see. And in this process, I came across some oddities which really do not fit into the other video. We're going to be talking about the Prince Albrecht Palais, but they will be interesting to talk about it here for a minute, because that will explain a few things about tax government entities and their audit practices as we have experienced them. Now, I'm going to read this here first in German, and then I will tell you of what this actually reads in English, and then we're going to talk about this. This is in the final tax audit of 1943, and they're referencing here, by this time since 1935, the audits from 1935, 38, 41, and 43 were done by the Nazi tax authority. What that means is that they had discharged all the tax auditors and employees of the tax offices across the German Reich with Nazi conformist. We call it the Gleichschaltung. This was when the entire German government was converted from the Weimar Republic over to the Nazi government. So we're dealing here now with Nazi conform or Nazi authorized Nazi sympathizers who worked for the tax office in Breslau, who did this final audit. And that was a combination of the audit of Prince Waldemar, because he took over our family trust. That is a very complex process which is outlined in here. And my great-granduncle's estate, and then the four cousins of my grandfather and their mother, which are also partially in here, because that was all interwoven and that was then all separated out, and I got all the details. But this is ways beyond this video. Now this here reads under line item 22, Silberwerte. Der Silberwert wurde mit 0,04 Reichsmark je Gramm 1000 Fein gerechnet. In der Berechnung des Preises sind auch nicht silberne Teile wie Messerschneiden, Tuch, Metallmontage, Holz und Lack enthalten. Das Gewicht bei durchschnittlich 0,800 Fein beträgt 566.864 Gramm oder 566 Kilogramm, 566,864 Kilogramm. Umgerechnet auf 1000 Fein, das ist 1000 Fein, 453.492 Gramm. That is 453 kilograms, 0.492 grams. Das ergibt mit 0,04 Reichsmark vervielfacht den veranlagten Silberwert von 18.140 Reichsmark. In diesem Wert ist eine silbervergoldete Toilette mit einem Gewicht von 46.420 Gramm enthalten. Laut Vermögenserklärung 1931 wurde diese Toilette gesondert je Gramm mit 0,10 Reichsmark bewertet. Dieses Bewertungsverfahren wird für die Vermögenserklärung 1941 gleichfalls angewandt. Vergleich Berichtigungsvermögenserklärung Schreiben vom 28.07.1942. Für das Vermögen wird ebenfalls die Toilette besonders bewertet und der Unterschied von 2.785 Reichsmark dem Vermögen zugeschlagen. Now what they did is in 1931, first of all, let me explain this with the numbers. What this reads here is the silver content of all the furnitures, everything that had any part of silver on it, in it, or around it, was valued at 4 pennies, basically, or 0.04 Reichsmark. That is basically 4 cents or 4 pennies per gram. Was 1/1000th of a kilogram. 1,000 fine means that is 9.99 silver, basically. And what they did is they went and they calculated this. So all the combined weight here was then calculated of what they had. So they weighed everything. They weighed all of the knives, the forks, the spoons, any type of fabric which had any type of silver in it, any type of metal frame like a table or, whatever it was, a shelf which had silver on it, any wood which had silver on it, and any paint which had silver on top of it. And with that, they came out at 0.8. That is 7.99 or 8.99 silver. Basically, they came out to 566.864. This is the point, is the separation between the that's where we go to the thousands. And when we convert this, the comma would be 00. So this is basically 566.864 kilograms of silver. At 0.8, when you convert this, when you reduce it over to the 9.99 level, it comes down to 453.492 kilograms. And that had a value from 1931. They left it at the same price in 1941-43 at 18,140 Reichsmark. Just to give you an idea, the Reichsmark was about 2 Reichsmark 40 was $1 back in the mid-1930. And if we convert the $2 or the $1 today to the inflation adjusted dollar today in today's value, then we have to just simply multiply this about by a factor of 10. The correct factor is actually 9.89, but let's just say we use 10. And then we have today's value of what they assessed. So they assessed his silver on everything in the buildings at $181,400 in today's dollar. In this process, when they did the audit, they went in, and in the castle in Kamenz, that is today in Poland, Kamieniec-Zapkowicki, my great-granduncle had a pure silver toilet bowl, which was gold-plated. So what they did is they actually uninstalled the toilet bowl, put the toilet bowl on a scale, and they came out to 46.42 kilograms. And then they reinstalled, or had the maintenance guy basically reinstall the toilet. This is how fucking crazy this whole thing was. And then they assessed this not at 0.04, but at actually 10 cents, or 10 cents. And that gave them a value of 2,785 Reichsmark, which would be today $27,850 just for the assessment of the silver gold-plated toilet bowl. Just so you get an idea on how crazy this was. The reason why they did this is because they were trying to assess the rental value of the castles. That means if you don't live there all the time and it is not rented, they will assess a rent value which you will have to pay taxes on as the owner if it is not rented out. This is socialism for you. And we have to remember, the Weimar Republic was a socialist republic, and the Nazis was a socialist nationalist party also. So that's why they kept this from the Weimar Republic. In that sense, it made no difference to them. That is the first part. And let's see, because Waldemar, who took the castle over in Kamenz, went to Bavaria on April 10th of 1945, when the Russians moved into Kamenz, or into Kamenz-Zapkowicki. And that was when the toilet bowl and everything else which was in the castle was left. The question is, which part of the Red Army actually did this? There was the 1st Ukrainian Front, and there was the 4th Ukrainian Front in this area. This here is Breslau, the city of Breslau, which was under siege. And we can see this after the siege ended and the German Blue Line retreated, fell apart. This is when this contingent here of 52A and of 5BA, or whatever this is, from the Russian Red Army moved in here. Kamenz-Zapkowicki is about right here at this triangle where the train lines, or where that train system here meets. This here is Seitenberg, and this here is Wölfelsgrund. Seitenberg is today Stronislaski. So this was then occupied, and it was those part of the Red Army which took control of the castle. And now the question comes, who actually moved in here? If someone of you is a military expert in military history, maybe you can leave a comment in it and tell me who that was. Because this unit here primarily, which moved into here and took control over the castle, they're the ones who loaded the entire inventory up of the castle, and they put them on the railroad right here in Kamenz, Kamenz-Zapkowicki, and from there it was carted off to the Soviet Union. It is quite possible that the stuff actually wound up in Kiev, because the 1st Ukrainian Front was the one who liberated Kiev a couple years earlier from the German Wehrmacht, and this is the contingency which moved then further west and came through here, through Upper Silesia and Lower Silesia, into the area of Breslau, and this part here, and occupied this then at that point. So the toilet bowl, it is quite possible it was either melted down, or it is somewhere in someone's dacha in the Ukraine, or somewhere in Central Russia, or somewhere in Russia, and someone is taking a shit on this toilet bowl today. That is possible, plus whatever else was in the castle. And that was close to 500 or 566 kilograms of furniture which had silver on it. So that's what we know for sure. That is just how crazy this whole thing is. And I just wanted to share this with you because it really doesn't fit into the other video. The other thing is, but this is the 1935 audit, or from one page from the 1935 audit. And later on in 38 and 41, the auditors complained about the pension fund Friedrich Heinrich had put together for the members or the staff of his castle operations. Some of these people were still, from the early 1900s, 1910 times. And the first one we have listed here is Pressler. And he had set aside for Pressler a Rückstellung, that means that was kept back. This were the ongoing payments. He had set aside 53,681 Reichsmark. Pressler was the chef during his time after my second great-grandfather passed away. And so was Schalke. Let me just see. Sorry. Here we go. And so was Schalke. Nalke. Sorry, Nalke. Couldn't read this. 53,176. Those were the two chefs. This one, he was in Berlin and he was in Kamenz. So he set that up for the chefs. And this would be in today's money $536,810 and $531,760. Just so you get an idea of what he had set aside for their pensions. The Nazis then complained, the Nazi auditors complained that all of these people who worked here, this is a pretty long list, this is all the pensions he had to pay out. Every month they were getting their payments, these people here. You had the janitors, you had, people who worked in the staples and that sort of stuff. And you can see this here. This is the entire thing. So the entire pension system, which we paid for, was 16 million zeros. Total it was 489,269 Reichsmark and 55 Pfennige. This would be today, by a factor of 10, $4.89 million US dollars, what we were paying in pensions every single year for these people here. This is what this looked like. This was a pretty steep undertaking. So when he tried to deduct this from the taxes, the Weimar Republic didn't complain, but the 1935 audit did not complain. But once the war had started, or was about to start in 1938, the first concerns were raised by the tax auditors, and then 1941 and 1943 they were basically saying these payments were outrageous, and he should not be paying the employees or former employees that much retirement. So if you're thinking about voting to the right, I would think about it twice, and because these people will basically cut down your pensions as faster than you can say amen in church. And the same is with the left wing. And I'm pretty sure that this video might create some excitement about the left. And I can hear Bernie Sanders and Chuck Schumer already in the United States talking about a silver gold-plated toilet bowl at my uncle's castle. That fits right in there with their whole thing here. Well, anyway, I wanted to share this with you, and you can see on how much material this is what I have to work through, but there's a lot of details in there which we're going to discuss then in the final video about the Prince Albrecht Ballet and the pictures. There are going to be a lot of pictures then. And with that, you have a great evening.